call the Shadow Leader, Jessie Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House give us the forthcoming business?
Leader. I shall. The business for the week commencing the 10th of March includes Monday the 10th of March, second reading of the Crime and Policing Bill. Tuesday the 11th of March, remaining stages of the Employment Rights Bill, Day 1. Wednesday the 12th of March, remaining stages of the Employment Rights Bill, Day 2. Thursday the 13th of March, general debate on the future of farming, followed by general debate on the mental health support in educational settings. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 14th of March, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 17th of March will include Monday the 17th of March, remaining stages of the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, Day 1. Tuesday the 18th of March, remaining stages of the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, Day 2. Wednesday the 19th of March, consideration of Lord's amendments to the National Insurance Contributions Secondary Class 1 Contributions Bill, followed by Opposition Day, first allotted day, second part, debate on a motion in the name of the official opposition, subject to be announced. Thursday the 20th of March, general debate on knife crime amongst children and young people, followed by general debate on coastal communities. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 21st of March, the House will not be sitting.
Yes, no.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I, first of all, associate myself very strongly with your kind remarks about Peter Hipkins and his service to this House. I should also say that we join with all colleagues, I'm sure, in celebration of International Women's Day this Saturday. But I am sure the whole House will also share my deep concern at the latest news in relation to Ukraine, and will wish to send all of our best wishes to the Prime Minister and other European leaders in doing everything they can to support that country. Mr. Speaker, it's now 3 months or so since I became Shadow Leader, and I'm sad to say that these joyous Thursday morning sessions seem to have fallen into a little bit of a rut. No, no, I hear you cry. Business Questions is still as fresh and lively and engaging as it ever was, if not more so. But sadly, I fear that is not true. It is our function on this side of the House, of course, to press public concerns and raise questions about the government. Indeed, as His Majesty's loyal opposition, it is not only our function, but our constitutional duty to do so. On the other side, it is, of course, the government's job to respond to these questions and concerns, and in so doing to make the case publicly for the policy choices and decisions that it has made, and, if it has a strategy, for its underlying strategy. But unfortunately, as you will have noticed, Mr. Speaker, the government is not doing that in our sessions. In fact, the Leader of the House rarely, if ever, responds to the important public questions and concerns that I raise. Instead, I'm sorry to say, we get the same endlessly reheated mishmash of standard party political lines, personal jibes and irrelevant comments. You will recall that I raised this issue first at Business Questions on December the 4th, and I highlighted a series of occasions on which the Leader had been unwilling to answer or even to address some obvious examples of government economic incompetence. As I pointed out, many different responses were open to her. She could have said, "I agree," or "the Shadow Leader's wrong for the following reasons," or even "I don't know." If she did not want to respond at that particular time, she could have said, as so many other ministers do, "I will look into it, I will reply to you, I will ask a colleague to investigate and respond." We just saw the Cabinet, head of the Cabinet Office saying, the Chancellor of Judge of Lancaster say just those things. But in fact, on none of these occasions did she bother to give any kind of proper answer at all. Instead, her approach was to change the subject and attack the previous government rather than defend the record of her own government, which is, after all, the whole point of these exchanges. What is more troubling still is that she herself has so often called for transparency from ministers, and that a failure to be accountable is itself a breach of the rules of this House, of the Nolan Principles and of the Ministerial Code of Conduct. Mr. Speaker, I wish I could report that anything had changed since December. If anything, however, I'm afraid matters have got worse. A recent low point was Business Questions on the 13th of February, when I raised 5 important issues relating to the government's approach to the rule of law, including the potential clash between domestic and international law, the level of risk the government was seeking to take, and its attitude towards judicial review. I'm sorry to say that the Leader did not respond, or did not bother to respond, even, to any of these questions. Instead, we had yet another series of irrelevant political attacks. Mr. Speaker, we need a better way to track and monitor these evasions. So, in a spirit of openness and transparency, I would like to propose a new approach. which we can call leaders' bingo. Colleagues get a point every time the leader blames the previous government, attacks members of the opposition, changes the subject, or uses the words gently remind, take no lectures, or similar in her response. I would not for 1 second suggest that colleagues shout bingo in the chamber, but there may be other ways in which they can indicate when they have filled their card. Mr. Speaker, this is a light-hearted suggestion, but it has a serious purpose. I know how strongly you feel about the importance of parliamentary accountability, transparency and the proper scrutiny of government decisions. So I would ask the Leader of the House again if she will reaffirm her commitment to these values and engage properly in future with the questions I have been asking.
Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And can I also join you in passing on our condolences to the family of Peter Hipkins for his long service in this House. And can I also start by wishing peace and blessings to those observing Ramadan and those marking Lent. Today is also World Book Day, a day to celebrate our favourite books and authors, and also, I have to say, every working parent's worst nightmare, having to find a last-minute costume. I see that the right honourable gentleman has come as his favourite author, himself, and for those who haven't read the thrilling historical novel, The Winding Stair, it is still available in all good bookshops, Mr. Speaker. So he can give me some royalties later. Saturday does indeed mark International Women's Day, and I want to start by thanking you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing us to come together in this chamber and take a historic photograph to mark the most elected female MPs ever to this House. And it is a reminder that, as we mark International Women's Day, the gender pay gap is still 13.1% in this country, and women work for free on average 7 weeks a year. Well, perhaps the honourable gentleman is working for free most of the time, but anyway. Can I thank him for his comments on Ukraine? I think it's been really important to this country's international role and in support of the Prime Minister that the House of Commons once again has shown such unity and backing for Ukraine and for the Prime Minister's leadership in recent weeks. And he will know we are focused on making sure that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position to achieve long-term lasting peace through strength. And as we've done in recent weeks, we will make sure that the House is constantly kept updated on these matters. But that's kind of where it ended today, wasn't it, Mr. Speaker? Because I think the Shadow Leader used his slot again today to, I think, not actually ask me a single question. I mean, he says that I've not given him any answers any weeks that we've been standing here, but if he wants me to tell him again today where he's gone wrong, I'm happy to give him some advice about that if he really wants it, and I'm happy to tell him that yes, in fact, his government did get many things wrong and we are getting many things right. If he wants to play leaders business question bingo, perhaps we can start by saying bingo every time he actually asks me a question, because there wasn't much of that that we heard today. But, Mr. Speaker, there are lots of people in for business questions today, so I won't hold the House much longer. But I noticed that he didn't ask me about some of the really good things that the government's been doing here at home as well as here abroad. So should we just remind the House, as there's lots of people here today, we have confirmed the first 750 schools to receive free breakfast clubs because we don't want any child to start school hungry. We're ending the 8 a.m. scramble in our GP surgeries with more appointments and better access. We've launched our fantastic Common Hold white paper, another step to finally ending the feudal leasehold system. And we are dealing with the court's backlog that his government, frankly, left as another shameful reminder of their shocking record on criminal justice. And we've announced our plan for neighbourhoods, another £1.5 billion to help restore pride in our communities. And that's on top of the additional amendments to our Employment Rights Bill, because unlike his vacuous contribution today, this government is getting on with delivering for the country, whether it's at home or abroad. Thank you.
Dr. Maria Tidball.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the heartache flooding has caused families and communities in my constituency. They desperately need Sheffield City Council's excellent proposals for the Upper Don flood alleviation scheme to be protected from extreme flooding, including work on the Clough Dyke culvert and Whitley Brook improvements. Despite widespread local support and the importance of this scheme, the Conservatives never actually allocated funding to them. Will the Leader of the House allow time to debate flood alleviation schemes to ensure the appropriate funding is allocated in the forthcoming spending review?
Leader.
Well, can I thank you for that question? She's absolutely right that we inherited flood assets in their poorest condition on record after many, many years of underinvestment. That's why we're putting more money into flood assets, and we've initiated a flood resilience task force, and I will absolutely ensure she's updated on how that affects her constituency.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Marie Gull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Leader has already noted, today is World Book Day, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Barnes Farm Primary School in my Chelmsford constituency for inviting me into their school yesterday to open their brand new library. 1 in 7 state primary schools in the UK doesn't have a dedicated library or reading space, and almost 1 million children in the UK don't have a book of their own. So it was wonderful to meet Year 5 students and representatives from Barnes Farm Student Council who are very enthusiastic about their new library, and it really is fantastic to know that they will have access to such a facility for a long time to come. Mr. Speaker, at PMQs on the 8th of January, I raised the plight of community pharmacies who are struggling to stay afloat due to the unfair terms of their NHS contract, which often sees them having to buy drugs that they dispense for more than the NHS reimburses them. The Prime Minister asked me to follow up with more details, which I did that afternoon. Despite chasing, I am yet to receive a reply from the Department for Health and Social Care, to whom my inquiry was passed. Community pharmacies can't wait. The National Pharmacy Association projects that nearly 1,000 pharmacies will close by the end of 2027. And there is no guaranteed funding for Pharmacy First beyond the end of this month. This is a critical issue that needs the government to address urgently. Now, I know the timeliness of replies from ministers and departments is something the Leader of the House takes very seriously. So will she let the House know what further steps she is taking to ensure that issues such as protecting our vital community pharmacies are given the swift and full attention that they deserve?
Leader.
Well, can I thank her for raising these matters with me? And first of all, on World Book Day and school libraries, absolutely concur with what she says. I'm sure as members of Parliament, we've all experienced opening a library in a school. And I recently opened a library in one of the poorest parts of my constituency. And the young children at the school, many of whom were not even wearing proper footwear, were queuing outside the library to get their hands on their first book that they wanted to read. So it's such a fantastic achievement. I'm really sorry to hear that she's not had the responses and the replies that she has asked for from ministers, and I do take these matters incredibly seriously. I will ensure that she does get a reply. She has raised with me the issue of community pharmacies on a number of occasions, rightly so. They are a vital part to our National Health Service. They've been left on their knees after many years. Many have closed over recent years. We are turning that around because getting services back into communities via pharmacies and other means is critical to delivering our health mission, and I'll ensure she gets a reply.
I'll do MacNae. Sorry, I'm in shock. Well, flooding again, I'm afraid. My constituency of Rossendale and Darwen, we've suffered greatly from flooding in recent years. Our steep valleys and wide moorland catchments make us particularly vulnerable. So I massively welcome the government's commitment to a record £2.65 billion of funding for flood defences. We have a number of key schemes in Rossendale and Darwen that urgently need this funding, and I am in communication with the department about it. But would the Leader agree with me on a debate in government time on flood resilience and support for communities affected so badly by flooding?
Well, I know he's a great advocate for his constituency on this and other matters, and flooding does affect his area as it does many others. As I've said, this government is finally turning the oil tanker around when it comes to our flood resilience. I will ensure that the Minister hears his call today. We have had regular statements and debates in this House on flooding, but I will ensure that we continue to have them.
Chair of the Backbench Committee, Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank you and your deputies for facilitating the Estimates Day debates yesterday and allowing the maximum number of people to contribute. And could I ask the Leader, in terms of estimates days, when we come to the full estimates in May, we believe, if we can be advised of the dates so that we can do the processing of the applications, that will be appreciated. In addition to the business that the Leader has announced, if we are given Thursday the 27th of March, there will be a debate on St Patrick's Day and Northern Irish affairs, followed by a debate on the 10th anniversary of the Modern Slavery Act. And I have to say, Mr Speaker, we now have a queue of debates for the Chamber that will last until the summer recess. So we'll be grateful, obviously, for every Thursday and every time that can be given, particularly if the House is going to rise early on government business. In addition, the business in Westminster Hall on the 11th of March, Tuesday the 11th of March, will be a debate on governance of the English Rugby Union. On Thursday the 13th, a debate on educational opportunities for young carers. On the 18th of March, with your agreement, will be a debate on free school meals. On the 20th, the debates on British Sign Language Week and government support for the tourism industry. And on Tuesday the 25th of March, a debate on retrospective accountability of the construction industry. On Thursday the 27th, a debate on prevention of drugs deaths, followed by a debate on the first anniversary of the Hughes report on valproate and pelvic mesh. Now, Mr Speaker, yesterday, the External Affairs Minister from India, Sri Ranka, was attacked when he was leaving a public venue when he'd been addressing an audience of Indian people in this country. He was attacked by Khalistani thugs. This is against the Geneva Convention, and it appears that the police and the security forces failed to ensure that he was made safe. Now, this is an affront to democracy. It's an affront to our friends and allies in India, and we need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So will the Leader ensure that the Home Secretary or an appropriate minister makes a statement to this House about what protection we're going to make sure when we have external visitors to this country that they are safe?
Well, can I thank the Chair of the Backbench Business for organising the Estimates Days this week and all the other debates that he has been organising. I'm sure you will appreciate that I have been as generous as many more than my predecessors, I think, on some occasions, at giving him advance notice of both estimate debates and of slots for backbench business. And I hear his plea today for as many of those as possible, which I'll continue to look kindly on as I previously have done. And I'm really sorry to hear about the attack, the very serious attack, it sounds like, on a visitor to this country from the Indian Parliament. Was it the Indian Parliament, I think he said? This is unacceptable and is not how we want visitors to be treated, and I will absolutely ensure that he gets a full response from the Home Secretary about it.
James Frith. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I first of all wish the Leader of the House a happy International Women's Day ahead of Saturday, before asking if, on behalf of my constituent Chris, he is among many affected by the loan charge which applies to disguised remuneration schemes. While everyone should pay their fair share of tax, many, like Chris, use these schemes in good faith when they were legal and now face retrospective penalties. The government's long-awaited review is a welcome step, but Chris and many affected feel its scope is too limited. They believe it fails to examine how we got here, its implementation, or those who promoted and missold these schemes. Will the Leader of the House allocate time for a full debate on the loan charge and its consequences?
Well, can I thank him for raising this really serious matter, and I recognise, as does the government, concerns around the loan charge scheme, and we're committed to ensuring there's a fair resolution for all those affected. We don't believe that it's right for those impacted to face years of uncertainty, which, as he says, is why we have established the independent review. It is tightly focused in order that we can get that report out before the summer with a government response as well, and I will ensure that this House is kept fully up to date with that.
To help the House, we have lots of people in for the women's debate, so I'm expecting to run this to around midday. Right. Harriet.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The budget turned the world, or at least the future for family farms, upside down, and we've seen mounting evidence ever since about the impact that the changes to IHT, BPR and APR will have on family farms. And this is from the industry, from industry experts and from tax experts as well. There's also mounting concern, I know, on the government's backbenches about the impact that this will have on their farmers up and down the country, and that is reflected on our benches too. With this in mind, and given the impact that these changes will have on family farmings and the future of food security in the country, will the Leader of the House please consider granting a debate in this chamber on the family farm tax and what we can do to help mitigate the impacts?
Well, look, this government backs British farmers. That's why we've increased the farming budget to £5 billion over 2 years, and that is a lot more than under her previous government. We set out a new deal for farmers. We're investing in flood defences. We're bringing in extending the seasonal worker scheme and many other issues. We have actually already had a debate on farming in government time. I did note that the opposition did not choose to make this one of their debates in their recent opposition debate, but they have got another opposition debate coming up, and they can absolutely use it to do that.
Yes, Athwal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise a case highlighted by other members of the House, including my honourable friend, the member for Western Bartonshire. In 2017, Jagtar Singh Johal, a British national from Dumbarton, was arrested in India just weeks after his wedding. He has been tortured, threatened to be burnt alive, and in arbitrary detention for 7 years and 4 months. This week, Jagtar was acquitted in the first case to come to court as there was no credible evidence. His lawyer has asked for all charges to be dropped as they have now no new evidence. Many Sikhs in the Sikh community, including my constituents in Ilford South, welcome this development, as well as the government's commitment to securing his release and return. Given the Prime Minister's and Foreign Secretary's meetings in the last 48 hours with the Indian Foreign Minister, could the Leader of the House provide time for an update on what steps are being taken to bring this British national, one of our own, home?
Well, can I thank him for raising the case of Jagtar Singh Johal, which I know is of great importance to many members across the House, Mr. Speaker, and we recognise this is a very difficult case. He will know that the Prime Minister has raised this with Prime Minister Modi, and government ministers continue to raise it on an ongoing basis, making clear that we want to see faster progress, a full resolution to this case, and we must see, as part of that, a full and independent investigation into allegations of torture. But I will ensure he and the House are kept updated on this important case.
Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This week it's been drawn to my attention that there is a continuing problem in this country with an issue which is reserved, which is the supply of drugs. A young constituent, 22 years old, an elite athlete, who unfortunately has inoperable brain tumours, came to me to say that there is a drug inhibitors which would help him, currently on open access trial in this country. Unfortunately, the health board in my constituency is not taking part. So drugs which could save his life, allow him to continue with his ambitions, are available, but he cannot have access to them. Would the Leader consider either having a debate on how we make access to drugs which are on trial universal across the UK, or please set up a meeting for me with the Minister to discuss this?
Can I thank her for raising this, and I'm really sorry to hear about her constituent, and I'm very familiar with these issues. Unfortunately, my gorgeous cousin recently died of a brain tumour, and it's a terrible, terrible illness, and it's something I've spoken personally to the Health Secretary about. There are drugs that could be made more available. There are trials. The Health Secretary is very committed to doing that, and the member for Mitcham and Morden has been campaigning on these issues for a number of years as well. But I will absolutely ensure that she gets a meeting with the Minister about this important.
Tulips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I received an email from my constituent which said that on April last year, I had a fall on a Highgate golf course which resulted in a complex break of my right leg. Friends phoned for an ambulance, but they were told that an ambulance would not come for this type of emergency. On a cold day, I was left lying in an isolated spot on the wet ground, unable to move and in great pain, with very limited options about getting to hospital. So could I ask the leader, could we have a debate about the response of ambulances in such serious situations so that my constituents don't have to go through this again?
Well, I'm sorry to hear of the case that she raises. An ambulance waits, and the wait times and the availability of ambulances are still absolutely unacceptable. They are a symptom of the NHS that is still in crisis. Ambulance find themselves waiting outside A&Es with patients on board, unable to get them into accident emergency, which means they're then unable to go on to the next case that they should go on to. We are taking action, but I will ensure that the House is kept updated and that her case is looked into.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week I received a copy of the National Priority Infrastructure Bill from the Looking for Growth campaign. Their proposals rightly highlight the complexity in our energy and planning systems. We urgently need more nuclear power and data centres to drive forward the AI and robotics revolution here in Britain. But with the highest industrial energy prices in Europe, we risk falling behind. So can we have a debate about how planning can best be reformed to provide reliable, affordable and abundant energy?
Well, I agree with the honourable gentleman. These are very important matters, speeding up our planning and infrastructure decision-making in this country so that we can get more nuclear, more data centres, more onshore, offshore wind. We can really get to that energy security that the country so desperately needs. I'm sure that he will delight in reading the forthcoming planning and infrastructure bill, which he needn't wait more than now, probably a matter of days to read.
Lee Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Zoe Dunklin from Thrapston in my constituency is a former Paralympian who represented our country on the global stage. Recently, the publicly funded mobility scheme refused her request for a 6-way driver's seat, which would mean she could use a car independently, only offering a vehicle that would force her to rely on carers to get her in and out, preventing her from working, from volunteering and of her independence. She's even offered to pay the difference in price in order to get what she needs to live independently. Will the Leader of the House join me in fighting for the independence that Zoe and others deserve?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. He highlights how important it is to give people independence and mobility in order that they can go about their lives and work as well. He'll be aware that the Mobility Foundation is actually an independent charity, but the government does continue to work with it to ensure that its policies are open and inclusive, as they should be.
Ellie Chand.
Speaker, as the Green Party representative on the Cross-Party Commission on Social Care, I was deeply disappointed at the cancellation with only a day's notice of last week's planned initial talks. And since social care is in crisis, surely it should be a matter of urgency to get these talks rescheduled, and yet I've as yet had no response to my request for a new date. So could the Leader of the House ask the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to urgently prioritise setting a new date for these talks as soon as possible? Thank you.
Well, I absolutely will, because these talks are essential and we are determined to take forward cross-party talks on the future of social care, which is so important.
Eric Twig.
Mr. Speaker, if the comments from across the Atlantic this week have reminded us of anything, it's that we should always keep at the forefront of our minds the bravery of our service personnel, not least in terms of recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, serving alongside US and other allies. Therefore, can I ask my right honourable friend whether she can find time on the floor of this House so we can debate the bravery and sacrifices of our service personnel?
Well, absolutely, and I think he can hear by the cheers from across the House. I think this would make a very popular and important debate, a reminder that our armed services have gone to many countries around the world in support of our allies over many years and sacrificed their lives, and we should always remember their bravery and their contribution.
Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I assume that the Leader of the House shares my constituents' alarm that a court found that a convicted drug dealer here illegally could not be deported because he was too westernised, or that I understand that prolific offenders, including domestic abusers, going to be offered anger management courses rather than being incarcerated. And most of all, the new sentencing guidelines suggest that judges should look at felons' ethnicity and religion before sentencing? Will the Leader of the House allow a debate on criminal justice which will allow us to expose the huge gulf between the liberal bourgeoisie's prejudices and those of our constituents who want people caught, captured, convicted and punished regardless of whether they're black, brown, white or any other colour?
Well, I think he's talking about deporting criminals when they should be deported, and I'm afraid he will be aware, he should be aware, that nearly 3,000 foreign criminals have been deported since the election. That's an increase of over 20% under the last government. But he's right to point out that there still are gaps in that system. That's why we've brought in the Borders Bill, which will strengthen powers to tackle illegal migration and tackle small boats, and it will also enable this government to pick up the pace even further on returning those who have no right to be here.
Patricia Phipps.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a series of hard-hitting articles in the Herald and the Evening Times recently, the current condition of my home city of Glasgow was reviewed. Issues as diverse as potholes in Partick and poverty in Drumchapel, as well as the state of the public realm, were raised. After 14 years of the Tories in Westminster, 18 of the SNP at Holyrood, and 8 years of an SNP Green administration in Glasgow, the city is in need of a new vision. Does she agree that joining a 5-city pact, as suggested by Andy Burnham, is a sensible suggestion? And how would she suggest that government can support that ambition and the ambition of all of us who have the best interests of Glaswegians and Glasgow at heart?
Leader.
Well, as a Mancunian, I'm sure she can appreciate that I agree with all of Andy Burnham's suggestions, nearly all of the time anyway. But this does sound like a very good one. But she makes a bigger point, which is that the Scottish Government in Scotland, with the previous Conservative government here in Westminster, have failed the Scottish people. And that's why people voted overwhelmingly for a fresh start with Labour at the general election. And I'm sure that will continue.
Rupert Lowe.
Women, let me put my glasses on. Women are being forced to face significant risk in order to be inclusive. Men must not be allowed access into women-only spaces, regardless of whether they believe themselves to be a woman. They are not. We must prioritise safety over inclusivity, dignity over wokery, reality over ideology. Will the Leader of the House commit to a debate in government time on protecting women-only spaces and women-only services?
Well, I thank him for that question. Look, the Equalities Act makes absolutely, which the Labour government brought in, makes absolutely clear for the provision of women-only spaces and for those to be protected, especially where they are needed. We are proud to have brought in that act and stand by it, and I think he would, I'm sure, want to have said in his question that the Labour Party has done more to support women, to close the gender gaps in this country, to reduce inequalities and to tackle violence against women and girls than perhaps his party or the party opposite is doing.
Paulette Hamilton.
Mr. Speaker, the B23 postcode in my constituency of Birmingham Erdington has experienced a troubling surge in knife-related offences. The West Midlands Violence Reduction Unit has been instrumental in addressing the issue, engaging with over 8,000 young people, contributing to an 18% reduction in youth violence involving knives between April and September 24. However, the Violence Reduction Unit depends on short-term annual funding, which restricts its capacity for long-term strategic planning. Will the Leader of the House schedule a debate in this chamber to discuss the incredible work of the violence reduction units and explore long-term funding arrangements for these organisations? Thank you, Mr.
Well, absolutely. She raises a really important issue. This government is absolutely determined to tackle knife crime in this country, and she's right that this is a long-term strategy. It's about prevention. It's about supporting organisations like that she raises, establishing things like Young Futures, the coalition to tackle knife crime that the Prime Minister has brought together, as well as taking the steps that we are already taking to ban the sale of knives and other measures that are in the forthcoming crime and policing bill. And she will know that there is a debate on this matter next week, in 2 weeks' time in the Chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I attended the Thrive Youth Cafe held at All Saints Church in Huntingdon. The cafe runs on Mondays and Fridays after school, and speaking to Richard and Ruth who run the space, it provides a safe space and a listening ear, as well as pool, table tennis and the PlayStation. Crucially, it provides opportunities for young people to access support from local youth workers. Funding for the Youth Cafe is precarious though, with grants allowing the project to exist only in 6 monthly cycles. They desperately need longer-term funding guarantees. Could the Leader of the House of Commons make time in the schedule to celebrate the value that provision brings to teenagers and young people? And could I invite her to the Youth Cafe to try one of their now infamous Oreo milkshakes?
Well, my children are very fond of Oreo milkshakes and all the calories that are usually in them, but I would take him up on that offer when I'm next in Huntington in his constituency. But look, he raises what sounds like a fantastic voluntary-run service in his local community, and like many of these services, they do face real funding uncertainty. One of the reasons why this government wants to have multi-year funding settlements for local government, which is where many of those types of organisations get their funding from. But we do need to do more to ensure that these important services can thrive and survive.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Blythe town in my constituency is definitely a town on the up and up. But the first impression you would get, a new visitor into the town, using the main gateway into the town, would be this huge derelict garage, which is in desperate need of demolition. The Northumberland County Council have been approached to address this situation, and here's the issue. The County Council have said quite simply that whilst they agree it's in a complete and utter mess, it doesn't bring the overall amenity of the area down. You know, what a slap in the face for the people in that local community. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that it's simply a situation where certain areas have been abandoned over 14 years of Tory rule? And can we have a discussion in government time to discuss the accountability of local authorities to determine what they can and what they should be doing with properties like this right the way through the country in different constituencies?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear of the blight on the community, on his constituency, that this derelict garage is bringing. And he's absolutely right. You know, these are opportunities for investment, for transformation, for really showcasing an area. And I'm sorry that his council's not seen that opportunity for what it is. I know that the Secretary of State for Housing and Local Government is really committed to address these issues, which is why we are bringing forward things like the neighbourhoods scheme that we announced this week, but also forthcoming legislation on community right to buy, on compulsory purchase order and other matters, which I think will give local authorities the powers and the resources they need.
Luca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And when the law favours identity over principle, it ceases to be justice at all. Magna Carta taught us that. So will the Leader ensure that the Justice Secretary comes to the House to explain why, under this government, sentencing is going to become about who you are, not what you have done?
Well, look, as he knows, the sentencing guidelines were consulted on under his government last year, and they were not ruled out. They were developed and consulted on under his government, and the current Justice Secretary, the remarkable and formidable Justice Secretary, has made absolutely clear her position on that, and she's written to the Sentencing Council today to make her do. So perhaps he might be better to reflect on the actions of his own government rather than attacking this one.
And Aldridge.
Western Museum in the heart of Weston-super-Mare is a joyful community hub, famous for Clara's Cottage, fantastic cake, and now Banksy's famous pinwheel. Western Museum is also hosting a beautiful exhibition curated by some wonderful women of Weston-super-Mare. for International Women's Day. Will the Leader of the House join me in praising these women who put this exhibition together so thoughtfully, and will she also join me in encouraging everyone to visit the exhibition? Thank the dedicated volunteers who contribute so much to the life of Western Museum and our town. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. I will join him in supporting his constituents, and what a great job he does as the MP for Weston-super-Mare, standing up for all the women in his constituency as well as everybody else.
Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I draw the House's attention to the fact I'm Vice Chair of the Western Gateway Partnership, APBG. The Government has so far refused to allocate further funding for the Western Gateway Partnership, a partnership that's brought together businesses, academia and local leaders to produce some impressive work, including a soon-to-be-published report on tidal energy opportunities along the River Severn. So when will the Government bring forward a statement on the future of the Western Gateway, and will the Leader of the House ensure that this happens before the spring statement?
Well, I will ensure she's given an update on the Western Gateway Partnership, and tidal is one of a number of energy resources that we are taking action on, so I'll ensure that she and the House is updated.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Speaker. Last week, Suffolk County Council announced that they are ending their contract with Suffolk Libraries and taking it in-house. This is an appalling plan. Suffolk Libraries saved Suffolk from experiencing library closures under Tory austerity. They opened up libraries and expanded services when others across the country were closing down. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that we should be celebrating the success of Suffolk Libraries and not talking them down and running them down?
Well, I strongly support any organisation which boosts and supports local libraries, because they are vital to our communities and to young people living in them. And on World Book Day, we should particularly mark the contribution of our local libraries. I know that government officials have met with Suffolk County Council officers about this matter, but I will ensure that she's updated, and she's raised them very, very strongly here today.
Martin Bickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Tuesday, I took part in the Westminster Hall debate about market towns. It was heavily oversubscribed, and although we were doing our best, members across the House were doing their best to have a canter around their constituencies and highlight, in my case, Brigg and Barton upon Humber, the time was very limited. Our market towns face a number of challenges, the future of the retail sector, the availability of public services, and a host of others. It was quite clear that an opportunity to discuss that in more detail would be appreciated. Could the government provide time for a full half-day debate on the issue of market towns?
Well, look, market towns are one of the great British assets that we have, and I'm not surprised that the debate was so well subscribed. Indeed, many debates in Westminster Hall are being very well subscribed, and we certainly do consider how subscribed debates have been when we're thinking about what debates to bring to the floor of the House. The chair of the Backbench Business Committee is here. I know he's got a full list already, but I'm sure he'll be very open to that so that he and other colleagues can celebrate their market town.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Tuesday, organisations and companies based in the North East visited Parliament to celebrate their role in growing our local and national economy, including Sage, Port of Tyne and the North East Chamber of Commerce. And I was especially pleased to see Firebrick Brewery, based near my Bladen office, celebrating the launch of their new Stotty beer. And if you don't know what a Stotty is, you'll need to look it up. Can we have a debate on government time on the part that North East businesses can play in delivering Labour's plan for change?
Well, I absolutely will now look at what a Stotty beer is, Mr. Speaker. But can I thank her for that question, because this government is absolutely committed not just to growth, but that ensuring living standards and growth is felt in every part of the country, especially in places like her constituency of Bladen and Cosset in the North East. And I'm really pleased to hear that so many businesses from her region came to Parliament this week.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 7 years ago this week, on the orders of Putin in the Kremlin, my constituents faced Novichok, which had an enormous impact on the way of life in Salisbury for several months, and in the end, Dawn Sturgis died. Please, could we have a debate on the position of Russia in the world at a time of changing geopolitics. Because it's absolutely clear to the people of Salisbury, as it is to the people of this country, that an enduring peace can only be achieved if we resist appeasement and ensure that we have a secure arrangement with Europe and the US hopefully fully engaged. We need to discuss that urgently and discuss the role of Russia in the world going forward.
Well, absolutely, and can I thank him for that important reminder that, in fact, in this country, we have seen what a tyrant, what a terror the Russian regime is on our soil. This is not some separate or foreign incident just affecting Ukraine. It has directly affected this country and direct consequences for us. And that's why, as a whole house, we stand steadfast in our support for Ukraine. We are working as a government night and day to build those global alliances to ensure that there is that long-lasting security and peace, not just in Ukraine, but across Europe and elsewhere in the world, because we've seen firsthand what Russia does when Russia is not kept in check.
Conor Rand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Chloe is trying to sell her leasehold flat, but to do so she needs a landlord certificate which protects the leaseholders from the cost of remedial work. Riverside, the company managing Chloe's property, are refusing to provide it, meaning that she is trapped in an unsellable flat that has become unaffordable. Could the Leader of the House update us on the legislative action the government is taking to support people like Chloe and everyone in our country suffering from the leasehold scandal? Yeah.
Well, can I thank him for raising this issue? And as a near neighbour of his, I'm actually very familiar with Riverside and many of these issues that he raises, and I hope Riverside have heard the particular case that he says. But he's absolutely right. Leaseholders find themselves trapped in homes that are unsellable or unaffordable with high rising costs of insurance, and they often find that they are voiceless in the future of their building, with costs going up and up and up, which is why we are first and foremost implementing the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act measures from last year. We've just this week published our white paper on common hold, which is the beginning of the end of leasehold for good, and we are bringing forward later this year a draft bill on leasehold reform.
Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week, the BBC uncovered the shocking case of how a man convicted of a horrific murder in Bradford has since gone on to spend almost 2 years working with vulnerable children and schools after he was wrongly cleared by the Disclosure and Barring Service in 2021. In response to this, which is a clear major safeguarding failure, DBS has now claimed that whilst serious offences committed after 2006 may lead to someone being automatically barred from working with children, offences committed before 2006 may not. This is clearly wrong, and I suspect that this case in Bradford is not a lone one. So can we have a debate in government time about how the wider system of DBS checks, particularly those carried out on individuals seeking to work with vulnerable children, can take place in this House so we can get to the bottom of this?
Well, this is a shocking case, and he's absolutely right that we need to be able to have confidence in the DBS check system. That's underpins safeguarding of children in this country, and if we can't have confidence in it, then that throws up a whole number of questions that this shocking case has also done. So can I thank him for raising it here today? I will ensure he gets a government response about that particular case and what steps are being taken to ensure this never happens again.
George Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, rugby league fans like yourself and others in this chamber will know and love my most famous constituent, Billy Boston. Before I came into this chamber, I was informed that Billy is not well, and local councillors in my constituency have started a petition to ensure that he receives a knighthood while that's still possible. It is a scandal that for over a century, no Rugby Football League hero has received a knighthood, a scandal that we must recognise. So does the leader agree with me that Billy Boston should be Sir Billy Boston while that's still possible?
Well, I know Mr Speaker has very strong views about these issues as well, which I share as the former patron of Rugby League. He will appreciate I can't comment on particular nomination applications, but what I can say to him is that I share his concern, which I know Mr Speaker shares, he often takes the opportunity to share that with us now as well, that Rugby League, which is a great northern sport, should get better recognition in our honours system.
We must wish Billy well, I'm glad you mentioned it. He's the greatest convert from rugby union that came to rugby league, and nobody has ever scored tries like Billy Boston. Right, John Lamont.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can we have a debate on access to banking services in small towns and rural communities? For years, big banks have treated loyal customers very, very badly. They've shut branches and reduced services, especially in more rural and remote areas like my own in the Scottish borders. Indeed, just this last weekend, I had to contact cash machine providers because Selkirk and Eyemouth ran out of cash. So will the Leader of the House back my call so that residents in small towns and rural communities can get access to the cash services and banking services they need?
Leader.
Well, access to cash and banking services, I think, is probably the single biggest thing that gets raised with me in business questions. So I know that it is of great interest to this House and his constituents, and it's vital that we take it seriously. That's why we're bringing in banking hubs. We're committed to opening 350 of those, and I think we're along the way to do that. But this is not just something the government itself can deal with, and we do all need to take more action to make sure that our rural communities have got access to banking services.
Food.
Mr Speaker, last week I held a meeting with local residents impacted by leasehold, an acute problem in my constituency, compounded by at times pretty unscrupulous behaviour by developers. Trapped by short leases with unaffordable buyouts, eye water and extension costs, and mortgage lenders unwilling to lend. Can we have a debate on government time to update the House on the action that this government is taking to end the feudal leasehold system?
Well, absolutely. This also gets raised with me a lot in business question, but also by my own constituents. She's absolutely right. We do need to end the feudal leasehold system. It is trapping homeowners, innocent homeowners, in properties that they're unable to get mortgages on or to sell, and it is a shocking fleasehold system. I think we've called it many times before. We are taking a number of steps, including implementing last year's Leasehold Reform Act. We are moving forward on common hold with the white paper. We're bringing forward draft legislation later this year for a fundamental root and branch reform of leasehold, but I will ensure that the Minister comes to this House regularly to update us.
Tom Goldman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently visited the beautiful village of Burton Leonard in my constituency of Harriet and Knaresborough for the 100th anniversary of the Women's Institute branch there. I wondered if the Leader of the House would join me in celebrating the fact that they've made it to 100 and hope that they've got many more years to come, but also see if there would be time for a government debate on the importance of local community organisations and how we ensure that they have support for funding.
Well, as we celebrate International Women's Day, I think it's a good day to recognise the valuable work of Women's Institute around the country and in Burton Leonard in his constituency as well. He's absolutely right. These sort of organisations, voluntary organisations, provide a huge service to our communities, and they deserve a long-term future.
Leon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This week there was a youth strategy review announced which couldn't be more welcome in my constituency of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages. According to Unison's local government report, between 2010 and 2023, Staffordshire County Council closed down 32 youth centres. That's the third highest in the country. Would the Leader agree to have a debate with this government on what the work is happening to help youth centres across the country? And while we're talking about young people, Emily Ritz from Newcastle and Stafford College in my constituency was recently honoured with the Project Excellence Award at the AOC Student of the Year Awards. Would the Leader join me and the Honourable Member for Newcastle under Lyne in celebrating her amazing work?
Well, absolutely, I'll join her in celebrating Emily Rick's fantastic work and her achievement, and I will also join her in agreeing that youth services and youth centres, which we've seen them completely hollowed out in recent years, play a vital role in preventing and supporting young people, keeping them out of other activities that we might not want them to do, and that's why we're committed to the Young Futures programme and many other initiatives.
And just remind people to speed up so we get other people in. Richard Holden,
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker, and I'd like to declare my interest as the Vice Chair of the APPG on Media and Chair of the APPG on Freedom of Speech. Last month I found myself in somewhat rare agreement with the Chancellor when she challenged Britain's regulators to create a regulatory environment that unlocks innovation and investment. And one of the sectors where we've seen really good growth over the last few years is actually in our media, with huge diversification right across the sector. But there is a concern about the attitude of regulators, which might undermine this growth potential. I think specifically of cases highlighted recently in an opinion piece by my honourable friend, the member for Windsor, in which Ofcom fined GB News 10 times more for doing a question time event with the Conservative Party leader than it fined another channel for broadcasting anti-Semitic tropes. I worry that this attitude towards policing the media, which seems to focus more on politics than prejudice, may act as a barrier to others coming into the sector. So can I ask the leader for a debate in this House on the media sector, the role of regulation and freedom in our sector?
Well, I think he began by saying he found himself in the unusual position of agreeing with the Chancellor. Fear not, I don't think he and I will find ourselves in the unusual position of agreeing on much anytime soon, but you know, I respect his views on many things. Look, our regulators play an important role. We do absolutely support free speech, but we also ensure that there is fairness, there is balance in our media, and also that we protect people from dis and misinformation and some of the problems that we've seen.
Tomorrow night, Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price will make history, headlining the first ever all-women's championship boxing card at the famous Royal Albert Hall with Boxer and Sky Sports. Will the Leader of the House join with me wishing both fighters and the entire undercard the best of luck, and confirm this government's commitment ahead of International Women's Day to increasing participation in sport for women and girls in Blackpool and across the UK?
Well, absolutely. I can join him in celebrating this historic occasion as Natasha and Lauren take the stage in that first all-women's boxing championship, and this government is committed to supporting and developing women's sport, not just in Blackpool but across the country.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Sentencing Council has issued guidelines saying that a pre-sentence report will normally be considered before sentencing a criminal from an ethnic, cultural or faith minority, or if the criminal is a woman or a transsexual, but not apparently if you're a straight white Christian man. This evidence of two-tier justice is corrosive to public trust and confidence in the criminal justice system. Given that Ministry of Justice officials attend the Sentencing Council, either the Lord Chancellor knew of this policy or she was asleep at the wheel. For the record, the Lord Chancellor's predecessor, Alex Chalk, has described these as ridiculous. The Leader failed to give a response to my honourable friend. So will the Leader of the House find time for a debate on Sentencing Council?
As I made clear to his friend earlier, the government has made absolutely clear that we disagree with the Sentencing Council's guidance that they've issued. He will know that the process in developing that and the consultation in developing that happened under his government's wash. It absolutely did. And the Lord Chancellor has made absolutely clear her position and the government's position clear today, and that's why she's written to the Sentencing Council.
Whereas, Madam Deputy Speaker, the creative services sector in my constituency of Campbell, Redruth and Hale, and Cornwall more generally, is one of the most important to our local economy. The work produced and exhibited and sold all over the world is sold all over the world, but I know that many of those active in our creative industries are concerned about the intellectual property risk from AI. Following the end of the consultation last week, will the Leader of the House assure those working in the creative industries that this government will take full advantage of what AI can provide, but also protect our precious creative industries?
Leader. Well, this government and I absolutely support our valued creative industries, and it's a long-standing principle and prevalence of our copyright rules and so on in this country that creatives get payment and have control over the creative content of their work. I will absolutely ensure that the House is kept updated.
Peter Bedford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've recently written to all government departments about the total cost of employee settlement agreements. Although there were some astronomical figures, most departments have provided me with a response. However, the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice have refused to answer this basic question, even rejecting FOIs from my office. Could the Leader of the House advise me on how I can obtain this information, particularly since the two departments have frustrated my efforts to scrutinise them thus far?
Leader. Well, I will look into why he's not had a proper reply and ensure that he gets one.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year, York Rescue Boat spent 6,500 hours patrolling the rivers in York and also trained 1,500 people in river safety. However, the rivers saw 25 people in, and last week, this week, we saw its latest tragedy. Will she have a discussion with colleagues in Cabinet about having a joint departmental working group to create a strategy around river safety so we can prevent these tragic events?
Leader. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about the tragic event in her constituency, and water safety is of real importance, and we know that on regular occasions we have to educate people, we have to make sure that the rescue services are there, and I will certainly make sure that her suggestion is looked at carefully and she gets a response about that.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure you appreciate the importance that the cider industry plays in my constituency of Glastonbury and Somerton. It's home to many fantastic traditional cider makers: Borough Hill cider, Beer cider, Hex cider, Old Cider House, Harry cider and Tricky cider, to name just a few. However, as we enter the spring blossom season, many independent cider makers are worried about the impact of the forthcoming extended producer responsibility regulations. So can we have a debate on government time about the impact of EPR regulations on independent traditional cider makers?
Leader. Well, can I thank her for raising that? And as a regular attender over many, many years to Glastonbury Festival, I have partaken in a bit of Glastonbury cider over the years, and I can confirm it is excellent cider, although perhaps can't remember that sort of towards the end of having it. I'm not actually aware of the new regulations she mentions, but I will absolutely ensure she gets a full response about them.
Luke Charters.
Madam Deputy Speaker, today I've joined over 100 Labour parliamentarians in calling for ESG rules to be reformed to support investment in defence. At this historic moment, can we have a debate on how the financial sector can step up to support defence and help shore up defence on our continent?
Leader. Well, absolutely. I think this is a really important matter about what the frameworks are, how this type of investment is allocated or should be allocated, and I will ensure that it is something that this House does continue to discuss.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Business questions are a must to watch every week, but I understand the people of Parashner province in Pakistan are watching this particularly because of this question. For the past 150 days in Parashner, Shia Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and Hindus have been under siege. Despite a peace agreement signed by both parties in January, the humanitarian situation remains dire, with continued reports of mob attacks and widespread international displacement. Some 800,000 individuals, including the elderly, the pregnant, the women, infants and the sick, are facing severe food and medicinal shortages due to the blockade of the road. They need the food, the petrol and the medicines to keep them going. 128 children have tragically died due to the lack of essential resources. Will the government engage in discussions with Pakistan counterparts to address the ongoing siege and ensure the restoration of humanitarian access via the road to Parashner to protect this vulnerable community? Thank you so much.
Well, can I yet again thank him for raising another important matter. He will know that this government is committed to promoting the rights and safety of religious minorities in Pakistan as they are elsewhere, and the British High Commission continues to raise the situation in Parashnar with the Pakistani authorities at the very highest levels.
Phil Brickle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Recent reports published by the Manchester Mill about racism, financial misconduct and bullying at the University of Greater Manchester in Bolton have significantly damaged the reputation of that institution over the last few weeks. Those reports have also led to a significant number of whistleblowers contacting me with further allegations highlighting concerning practices at the university. Given the university's position as a key institution in Bolton and that it receives significant public funding, it must be transparent and accountable, as must the Office for Students. Can the Leader of the House therefore provide government time for a debate on this gravely concerning matter?
Leader.
Well, I know this issue is of huge importance to his constituents in Bolton. He'll be aware that the Office for Students are looking into these very serious allegations and are engaging with the provider. And I'm aware that the police are actually involved as well, Madam Deputy Speaker. And he'll know that the Office for Student do have a number of sanctions available to them where they found failings and were such allegations to be found to be wrong. But I will ensure that he's kept updated.
The questions are short. We've only got another 25 minutes to go. Adam Jogi, show us how it's done.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I shall try. Last Friday, the people of Newcastle Lyme received the news that the cowboy operators of Wally's Quarry landfill had gone into liquidation. This is an attempt to cut and run from cleaning up the disgraceful mess they've caused for far too long. So can I ask the leader to find time for us to unpick the crisis facing the waste sector in England, to identify how we can make sure those who cause harm are held to account and are made to pay for their failures, and how we can deliver justice and the answers for the good people of Newcastle-under-Lyme.
Leader.
Well, can I thank him for his leadership on the issue of Wally's Quarry, which he's raised with me a number of times in business questions. I know he's had meetings with ministers, the Environment Agency and others, and I'm sure his leadership will be of great comfort to his constituent in sorting out this terrible situation.
Jodie Gosling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Footage released yesterday appears to show 200 horrific hours of repeated animal abuse at an abattoir in my constituency. I have been working with residents and a multitude of agencies to try and ensure safety and compliance since well before my election to this place. Many now feel outraged that the regulatory systems have failed to even notice, let alone address, the repeated breaches. So I asked the Leader of the House if she can work with me to establish why it took an activist to highlight these issues while my constituents in Old Arley and these animals continue to suffer, and ways to ensure that tighter scrutiny, swifter action, and that standards which don't and that when standards are not met, that businesses are closed.
Well, we take a zero-tolerance approach to breaches in animal welfare, such as those that she described. I think the Food Standards Agency have already taken some action, but if they've not taken sufficient action, I will ensure that they do.
Paul Wall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today is indeed, as the leaders mentioned, World Book Day, but it's also the day when I announce the winners of my own World Book Day competition for the children of Rochdale. Yeah. So will the leader join me in congratulating 10-year-old Harry Hodgkiss of Milner Parish Church of England Primary School for his brilliant book review of David Walliams' The World's Worst Monsters? And will she join me in thanking local businesses Alf Recruit, iBranded and Office Supplies Now for providing prizes of £375 worth of books for Harry's school and personalised stationery for all the winners?
Well, absolutely. I will join him very much in congratulating Harry Hodgkiss on winning his World Book Day competition, and to all the businesses and others who supported that competition and provided funds and everything else. I think after today's business question, and many occasions in this House, we can all say we're a bit of a squash and a squeeze here today, aren't we?
Douglas McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As this House has heard, on Tuesday of this week, my Western Bartonshire constituent, Jagtar Singh Johal, arbitrarily detained in India for over 7 years now, was acquitted of all charges by the judge at the District and Sessions Court in Moga in Punjab, yet he remains imprisoned, facing the possibility of 8 further court cases lacking in any credible evidence and could languish in confinement for decades. This is the breakthrough we've all been waiting for, Madam Deputy Speaker. The time for my government to act is now and immediate. Can I ask the Leader of the House to arrange for an urgent government statement confirming that every effort will be made to secure his immediate release and bring him home to Dumbarton?
Leader.
Well, he's absolutely right to raise his constituent's case, Jagtar Singh Johal, which has been raised a number of times in this House. He will know that the Prime Minister has raised this with Prime Minister Modi, and I can assure my honourable friend that we will continue to support this Mr Johal through his detention until he is released, which needs to happen urgently, and thank him for raising that, and I'll ensure the House is kept updated.
Alan Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 200 years this September, the modern passenger railways were born when locomotion number 1 was put on the tracks at Huyton Station in my constituency. Can the Leader tell us how the Government will support the global anniversary of the Darlington-Stockton Railway? And will ministers meet with me to discuss how we can bring back to its former glory the dilapidated original station, which is so key to our heritage?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. We support the Darlington-Stockton Railway and thank him for raising that here as we mark 200 years of its existence, and we'll support him in every way we can.
Julie Minns.
Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the reasons that parts of my rural North Cumbria constituency are not served by fixed broadband is because the per metre charge to access BT Openreach's ducts and poles makes it prohibitively expensive to roll out broadband by other providers. Will the Leader of House please make time for a debate on the costs of rolling out rural broadband, in particular the charges for physical infrastructure access?
Leader.
Well, she's absolutely right that access to digital broadband is vital. It's now the fourth utility for many people, and in rural communities this still remains patchy despite the previous government making money available. It's been too slow to roll out, too slow to get to her constituents, and this government's taking steps to speed that up.
Lawrence Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last Friday in this chamber, members of the UK Youth Parliament discussed and agreed the priorities for this year, which were votes at 16 and period dignity. The MYPs conducted themselves with honour and respect. Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to pay tribute and my thanks to yourself, the Speaker, the Speaker's office, the table office, the doorkeepers, in everything that they did. Will their leader congratulate their amazing day?
Leader. Absolutely join her in congratulating the amazing Youth Parliament. It's a reminder of how brilliant the young people of this country are and how young people can be responsible for casting their votes at the age of 16, a reminder of that. And can I also pass on my thanks to Mr Speaker and his office for facilitating it.
Leader Swallow.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Bracknell Indoor Indie Market celebrated its first birthday last week. It's run by two fantastic businesswomen, Jen and Rachel, and gives opportunities to many more women-owned businesses in Bracknell. Ahead of the International Women's Day debate, will the leader join me in wishing BIM a very happy birthday?
Leader.
Well, absolutely, I'll support them in congratulating, I think you said, Jennifer and Rachel on the work that they do. Women in business is something that we should be supporting more than ever, and they play a valuable role to our economy, and I support him in doing that.
Torquil Crichton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We all know of one famous US citizen who has close family ties to Scotland, but there are 25 million Scots-Americans who want to trace their lineage. It's a big market. That's why organisations in my constituency, like Hebrides People in Harris, historical societies in Ness and North Uist, invest in family histories and oral histories, which are a treasure trove to connect people to their roots. Would the Leader of the House join me in encouraging investment in heritage tourism so that we can connect the children of Scots emigrants, even those who stray in our friendship, to find their way home?
Well, absolutely. I know how important tourism is to his constituency, and he's done given a great advert for it here today, and I'm sure that will attract many more to it.
Laura Coatsmith.
In recent weeks, I've been contacted by many constituents who are really frightened by the decision of Buckinghamshire Council to temporarily close its housing register. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that people facing homelessness deserve our full support and that we must address the underlying causes of homelessness, such as the lack of affordable and social housing? And will she make space for a debate on this issue?
Leader.
Well, we've got an acute housing crisis in this country, and the long waiting lists or waiting lists even being closed, like the one she describes, is just a symptom of that housing crisis. That's why this government is committed to 1.5 million extra homes, of which a huge proportion will be social and affordable homes for people as well.
Joe Platt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I draw your attention to my position as Chair of the Long COVID and ME APPG? But in recognition of International Women's Day, I wish to draw attention to the significant gender disparity on the impact of chronic illnesses. And given the gravity of this, would the Leader of the House commit to holding a debate on women's health inequalities with particular focus of those living with ME, long COVID and other chronic illnesses?
Well, can I thank her for raising this? We are committed to supporting those with chronic illnesses, those with ME, and we are going to publish a delivery plan in the coming months. She highlights a very important matter of the gender disparity in that we recently had a debate on women's health, but I'm sure it would make a very popular debate in the future.
Noshaba Khan.
Thank
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across this House this week, we have heard of the vital contribution our armed forces make and the dedication they show to this country. However, sometimes the experiences of women in the armed forces can be a challenging one. Will the Leader of the House consider a debate on how this government can support women who are currently serving in and have previously served in our armed forces?
Leader.
Well, she raises a very important matter, and I know there have been recent cases that highlight some of the difficulties she raises. We want women to not only join the armed forces, but to be able to feel they can completely and fully contribute and have a long career in the armed forces where they're able to do that. And any barrier to that is wrong and needs to be rooted out, and I will certainly make sure she's updated.
We have 19 people and just 13 minutes. Please keep it short. Claire Hazelgrove.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And may I first declare an interest as I've promoted myself there, as a member of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Political and Media Literacy. Now, we live in increasingly uncertain times, and we're seeing the real change in the threats that we're facing move from just the traditional to the digital as well, with things like misinformation and disinformation on the rise. Given that, would the Leader please consider holding a debate on the importance of media literacy in preventing this and giving people the tools they need to fight against it themselves?
Leader.
Well, it's an important matter she raises, online mis and disinformation. The Online Safety Act provisions are starting to come through the system, but she's absolutely right that educating our young people is vital to making sure that they've got the literacy they need to navigate the social media world of the future that they're all going to live in.
Sean Davies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I recently had the pleasure of visiting Mail Solutions, an employee-owned company in my constituency led by Carl Lee. This is a company that sends envelopes and printing all around the world, including for elections across Africa. They told me, however, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there's red tape and barriers to exporting their products around the world. Can we back British business, reduce red tape and let businesses like this one grow?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. This government is committed to growing the economy, to ensuring that businesses like Mail Solutions can grow and flourish, and that the red tape and barriers to growth that are in their way are broken down as best we can.
Julia Buckley.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm proud to represent historic Shrewsbury with our Grade 2 listed building, but it's currently not being used to its full potential as the gateway to our magnificent town. Will the Leader of the House ask the Secretary of State for Transport to make a statement on ensuring the transition to Great British Railways allows for unlocking our beautiful railway assets for public and commercial use, which could transform our station quarter?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm very familiar with Shrewsbury Station, which is beautiful, but perhaps could be better used as the interchange and the important rail connectivity that it is to her constituents. And that's why this government is, and the Secretary of State are really looking at how we can make sure that land use and station development is at the core to our plan for boosting the railways, but also infrastructure and housing.
Oh, well. Elaine Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week I kicked off the annual Hillbilly 10K in my hometown of Dunmellington in Ayrcarrick and Cumnock. Hundreds braved the weather to race to support Cancer Research UK. By organising events like this for over 20 years, my constituent, Lorna Dempsey, has helped to raise £500,000 and more. Like so many other fundraisers, she was inspired by the loss of her friend to breast cancer at the age of 32. Will my honourable friend join me in thanking fundraisers like Lorna and make time for a debate in government time to show how we research into saving this cruel disease?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Can I congratulate her in taking part in the Hillbilly 10K? I hope it wasn't the traditional sort of Scottish weather when she was doing that, but also congratulating Lorna in her immense fundraising efforts. And she's absolutely right. We really do need to continue to do more to fight cancer, get cancer research and all the support so that we can stop people unnecessarily dying of cancer so young.
Linda Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Leader of the House has already mentioned the Equality Act 2010. Back in 2013, Parliament legislated requiring the Minister of the Crown to, quote, amend this section so as to provide for caste to be an aspect of race. However, 5 years later, the government announced that it would not implement this legislation, arguing that caste discrimination can be discrimination based on ethnic origins. Does the Leader of the House agree that caste discrimination is as bad as discrimination based on colour, nationality, ethnic or national origins, and will she therefore please agree to a debate in this House for the implementation of Section 9(5) of the Equality Act so that caste discrimination is specified to be a form of race discrimination?
Well, I absolutely appreciate that caste discrimination can be incredibly damaging and pernicious. We take our obligations under the Equality Act very seriously indeed, and I will ensure that he gets an update on where that's up to.
Luke Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A week ago today, Basingstoke sadly lost Graham Robbins, a long-serving governor at St Mark's Primary School in my constituency. Graham dedicated over 25 years to supporting the school, Emmanuel Church and St Mark's Church, playing a pivotal role in the lives of countless pupils and families. Even in his final days, he spoke of his deep love for the school and its community, leaving behind a remarkable legacy of kindness, wisdom and service. Would the Leader of the House join me in paying tribute to Graham, the vital role of school governors and the invaluable voluntary service that they provide?
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry to hear of Graham Robbins' passing, and I can understand that that would have a devastating impact on the school and his family and the whole community, and I'll certainly join him in paying my full respects to the work that he's done and the contribution that him and many other governors make to our society.
Maya.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm delighted that residents in Park End and Ormsby will soon see a state-of-the-art new Southland Centre sports facility coming to East Middlesbrough. Now, this is a team effort from our Labour Council, from the MFC Foundation, from Sky Bet EFL, and signed off by the Labour government. So does she agree with me that this is a winning performance from a strong Labour team?
Well, absolutely, it's a winning performance from a strong Labour team, and it's a winning effort in puns, which are normally my speciality, but I can't beat him on that one.
Joe Morris.
Madam Deputy Speaker, residents in Ovingdon in my constituency are desperate for adequate glass recycling facilities that they can walk to, as they're currently having to drive to Prado or Wylam. Yet Conservative-led Northumberland County Council is simply not listening to them. So will the Leader join me in calling for the Tories leading Northumberland County Council to get a grip and allow my constituents to properly recycle their glass?
Well, I'm really pleased to hear that his constituents are so keen on recycling, and I will join him in calling for the council, the Conservative-run council, to do more to make sure that his constituents who want to recycle can recycle.
Atkinson.
7-year-old Skye has been bringing joy to the lives of residents at the award-winning Brookfields nursing home in my constituency, whether it's playing bingo, watching a film, or just chatting over dinner. Does the Leader agree with me that everyone needs to be a bit more like Skye? And could we have a debate on the physical and mental benefits to both the young and elderly of being together?
Well, I love to hear of these intergenerational schemes where young people like Skye go into care homes and really do lift the lives of those at the end of their life. And I absolutely join her in saying that we should all be a bit more like Skye.
Rutland.
Speaker. Today is World Book Day, as we've heard, and like many in this House, I've got fond childhood memories of dressing up as a character from my favourite book. But research from the National Literacy Trust shows that the number of children reading in their spare time has fallen to its lowest in almost 2 decades. This comes at the same time as smartphone usage amongst children is soaring, which is causing concern to parents in my constituency. Will the Leader grant a debate in the government time on how we can reinvigorate a love of reading in young people and tackle smartphone harms?
Well, absolutely, and I'm glad that he enjoyed dressing up. As I said at the beginning, it is a bit of a stressful thing for working parents, scrabbling together an outfit. But he's absolutely right. We've got to get our young people enjoying the love of reading and the actual physical books, libraries, Bookstart, the Natural Literacy Trust, as he raises, are all crucial parts of that. I was actually really pleased that my youngest understood what a contents page and an index page was when reading a book, which I know it sounds remarkable, but these days when they can Google everything, they don't know how to use an index.
The 29th of March is a seismic day in Redditch Town Centre, as after a long hiatus, the outdoor market returns to Redditch Town Centre, thanks to our excellent Labour Council leadership of Joe Baker and Sharon Harvey. Will the Leader join me in congratulating Redditch Borough Council on their commitment to regenerating our high street, our local businesses, and perhaps encourage residents to join us on the 29th of March to make sure the market is a success?
Absolutely. I'm sure that many people across Redditch will join him and the local council on the 29th of March. And can I congratulate him as a great new MP for Redditch and the local council there for bringing back Redditch Market Town.
Alistair Stratton.
Oh, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Right across my schools, young people are concerned about the conspiracy theories and extremism they're encountering online. A really important report recently by the Pears Foundation and Public First highlighted the need to do more to empower our schools to tackle these issues in the classroom. So can we have a statement from the Education Secretary about how we can make sure the upcoming review of the curriculum delivers on exactly this issue?
Well, can I thank him for raising that? In fact, a number of people have raised with me already today around digital literacy and how we can do more to tackle disinformation online, especially for our young people. I think this would make a very popular topic for a debate, and I will ensure he gets an update.
Chris Vince.
Speaker, would the Leader of the House join me in paying tribute to the longest-serving leader of Harrow Council and the second ever chair of Harrow Council, Tom Farr, who passed away on Tuesday? Tom devoted so much of his life to serving Harrow community, both as a councillor and as a secondary school teacher, and also as the chair of Harrow Primary Health Trust.
Well, I absolutely join him in paying tribute to Tom Farr and his life of dedicated service to Harrow and Harrow Council. And can I also take this opportunity to thank my honourable friend for joining the Modernisation Committee this week.
Claire Hughes.
Ogwen Valley Mountain Rescue in my constituency have been stretched to the limit by an increase in call-outs. They've gone out 23 times already this year, including 2 tragic incidents which resulted in fatalities. Would the leader join me in saying a huge thank you to all the volunteers who dedicate their time, especially as they're celebrating their 60th birthday this weekend?
Well, absolutely join her in congratulating and thanking all of those from the Ogwen Valley Mountain Rescue Team for the fantastic work they do. And it's a shame they need to do it because we really do need people to take more seriously a common sense approach to enjoying our beauty and not putting themselves at risk.
Ewan Stainer.
Thank you. For 5 years, residents of the Upper Braes villages of Falkirk have been campaigning after a systematic failure of not fit for purpose heating systems that have led to poorly heated homes and extraordinarily high household bills. A gentleman I spoke to in Slamanan is spending 300 to 400 quid a month on energy in his 2-bedroom house to simply, as he put it, keep the frost off his nose. Does the leader agree with me that those involved in this failure should be held to account and those who suffered deserve a fair solution?
Well, absolutely, and that's why this government taking our clean energy mission so seriously, because not only will it give us energy security, it will lead to lower bills for people like his constituents, and in the meantime we're ensuring we're extending the Warm Homes discount to another 2 million people next year so that his constituents and many others can keep themselves warm at home.
Ewan Stainer.
No, we've done Andrew Cooper.
Andrew Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week I had the privilege of opening the new block at Sir John Dean's Sixth Form College in Northwich. At the event it was revealed that the Sixth Form Colleges Association have confirmed that once again Johnny Dean's is one of the country's leading Sixth Form colleges, having both the highest attainment and the highest value added of all large mainstream Sixth Form colleges. Will the leader join me in congratulating Sir John Dean's on this incredible achievement, and will she allow time for a debate on the vital role Sixth Form colleges play?
Well, absolutely. I'll join him in giving my heartfelt congratulations to Sir John Dean Sixth Form College for their outstanding contribution and all the great standards they deliver.
Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was great to visit Herts and Essex High School to kick off National Careers Week this week. So would the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time on how this Labour government is breaking down barriers to opportunity for young people in semi-rural communities like mine?
Well, can I thank him for organising and being so involved in the careers fair in his constituency. He's absolutely right. We've got huge opportunities in this country and we need to link better the young people and the skills that they have with the job opportunities of the future.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Recently, I met with Dr Shamsi and Dr Ward in Oakland's Health Centre within my constituency, and we discussed social prescribing. Social prescribing addresses social, emotional and practical needs, promoting holistic health, and local GPs play a really crucial role in this social prescribing. So can I ask the Leader of the House if we can have a debate on the importance of social prescribing?
Well, can I thank him for raising the important work done by Oakland's Health Centre. This government supports social prescribing to address wider health determinants and improve people's well-being.
Your record. Thank you for the Leader for being so fast. No response. We've got everybody in. Thank you so much.
We now give the front benches a few moments to shuffle over before we get on to the statement.